Welcome to Rowdy and Real with me, Sophie Shaw, therapist, well-being coach and slight loose cannon. I'll be sharing some life lessons and wisdom from the real world. If nothing else, it'll take your mind off your problems for a bit. And if we're really lucky, you might even hear something that helps you to make it better. So stick around for real talk, real growth, and some probable bad language. Let's dive in, shall we? Hi, welcome to another episode, and I am going to predict that this episode is going to be one that a lot of people will avoid. So if you have made it past the title, self-care, then you automatically get a great big fat gold star from me. Not that that has any monetary value of any kind whatsoever. But I'm going to be right up front with you. Self-care is one of the hardest things that I have to pitch to my audience, to my clients, because most of my audience are women and they'll just move on and stop listening. This is a subject that people tend to dismiss. Yeah, self-care, whatever, blah, blah, blah. That's not important. Well, yes, it is. And I want to tell you why. If you have started listening to this episode, I invite you, I entreat you to stick around because you might learn something more about self-care than you knew before. And hopefully I can tell you something that will convince you to pay more attention to your self-care and step it up a little bit. As some of you may know, I have been on a bit of a journey with my health lately, and I am just now easing back into work, and I have been forced, kicking and screaming, to practice what I preach in terms of self-care. And why is that? Why is it not just something that comes to us really naturally? And I do say that it is something that women in particular seem to struggle with. So let me ask you, what do you think of when I say the words self-care? What comes to your mind? Is it either that it's something to practice when you have to, i.e. when you're frazzled or you're ill or you're approaching burnout and you've got no choice, you absolutely have to practice self-care or you're going to drop? Or do you think of self-care as being like bubble baths and manicures and trips to the spa and that kind of, fluffy sort of version of self-care? I think we've come to associate the words self-care with either that kind of pink, luxurious, girly pampering or crisis management. And I think that's bollocks, because self-care shouldn't just exist in those two extremes. The one being a kind of luxurious thing that you get to have as a treat, or the other being something that you have to do in order to survive. Self-care is not just a luxury and a nice to have and something that you do as a special treat. It should be an absolutely critical part of your daily routine in order to preserve and maintain your physical and mental and emotional health and well-being. I believe that self-care in all its forms is as important as eating, drinking, moving and sleeping, and by the way, all of those things are acts of self-care, because those are some of the first things that go out the window when we stop looking after ourselves. Self-care is as important as love, as loving. And in fact, it is a very deep expression of love. It's a deep expression of self-love. And perhaps because of that, it's often one of the last things that we think about. It's something that we put right to the bottom of the list of priorities, right in the back of the mind. Yeah, I'll get to that when I've got time, that kind of thing. Now, I am directing this mostly at women because women are very guilty of not prioritizing our own needs. Just the very idea of putting ourselves before anybody else, it tends to be laden with so much guilt and shame and embarrassment. It's just not something that naturally comes to a lot of us. And this is especially true if you're one of those people who's just used to putting other people's needs before your own. If you are a natural giver, a doer, a natural nurturer, you're somebody who always takes on responsibility, probably too much responsibility for situations and things that, maybe don't belong to you. then this is going to be particularly true for you. And guilt and shame and embarrassment, they're also complete bollocks. And certainly should not be something that gets in the way of you just basically looking after yourself. If we are not looking after ourselves, it's impossible for us to look after other people. And I'm also going to fight with myself here because that seems to be the most popular argument used to help motivate women to start looking after themselves. If you look after yourself, you can look after other people. Well, yes, that's true. But also look after yourself simply because you exist, because you deserve to be happy, and happiness begins by looking after yourself. Now, self-care looks different for everybody because it depends on what your needs are in that one moment. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you what you should be doing for your self-care because that's down to you. You are the best judge of what you need. Self-care looks different for everybody, and it just depends on what's going on in your life. It depends on what your needs are in any given moment. There just is not a one-size-fits-all way to care for yourself. So sometimes the exact same action can be self-caring and also self-punishment, depending on the circumstances, depending on the context. So sometimes self-care might look like forcing your ass off the sofa and getting out for a run or a dog walk. And sometimes forcing yourself to exercise is a self-punishment. So the self-caring gesture would be taking yourself off to bed, having a nap, or something as simple as just making sure that you've eaten today. Sometimes self-care can look like just tending to the absolute basics, maybe having a wash, something really, really simple. Sometimes it could be getting a really structured routine in place that will help motivate you to tend to your meditation practice, to make sure that you're well hydrated, that you're sleeping well, that you're eating well, that you're exercising. So, the self-care aspect might be just getting a little bit stricter with yourself and being a real bossy coach to yourself, or a cheerleader. Ideally, a cheerleader rather than a whip cracker. And sometimes it means just letting all of that shit go completely and allowing yourself to completely, deeply rest and just be. So can you see that sometimes self-care is going to look like doing less? Sometimes self-care is going to look like doing more. And it's a bit of a balancing act to know whether you are looking after yourself or punishing yourself. Because the exact same action could be one or the other depending on the context. So it's a little bit tricky. How will you know? How do you know which route to take for your highest good and your best self-care? How will you know whether you need to kick your ass and do a bit more, or to stroke your ass and do a bit less? Let me offer you some saucy guidance. So how will you know whether it's appropriate for you to do more or whether you need to do less? So when you feel flat, bored, uninspired, a bit tired, when everything that you're doing is an effort and it just doesn't bring you joy, then it may be time to shake things up and get a bit more active. If you've got a kind of ennui thing going on, where the whole world is a bit beige and meh, then it's probably time to shift your energy, get yourself up, get yourself moving, do something a little bit more active. Change up your routine, make some different choices, go outside. I always think, having just said that there's no one size fits all, I do think that getting outside is a pretty good fix for most unhappy states. On the flip side, if you are feeling exhausted, then it's not time to get up and be active. It's time to rest and stop. Time after time, study after study has shown that the more breaks you take, the more productive you are. You cannot be productive when you're approaching burnout. It's just that simple. When you wake up feeling deep dread, when you wake up feeling anxiety, when you wake up feeling the pressure of your to-do list, It is time to go against your instincts and slow down. And you'll probably feel an enormous amount of resistance about this because the to-do list, and it feels overwhelming. When you start to resent all the things that you're doing for other people, it's probably time for a timeout. When your good nature has been exploited too far, when you've been overgiving, which, by the way, that's on you. If you choose to overgive, you can resent other people. You can do that. That's a choice. But it's also a choice to keep giving and giving and giving. Instead, the self-caring choice might be to practice saying no. that word that we're really crap at saying, nope, I can't come to that party. No, I am not going to be able to pick you up. No, I'm so sorry. I'm not going to, give you a free massage or whatever the no is. Simple no. When you're trying to decide what kind of self-care you need, it might be helpful if you just ask yourself these searching questions and do yourself a favor, just be honest. In the privacy of your own mind, be honest with yourself. If you feel that you should be doing more, first of all, notice that word should. Shoulds are really unhelpful. Shoulds tend to be motivated by some kind of outside source, like someone is going to judge me, someone's going to think I'm lazy or whatever if I don't do the thing. So if you feel you need to do more, ask yourself, is this self-motivation? Am I feeling inspired and motivated to make a change? Does the idea of doing more make me feel slightly challenged, but, up for it because I know it'll be good for me? Or is it self-punishment? Is it motivated by that should? Is it motivated by feeling inadequate or feeling like you're not good enough because you're not moving enough? Do I need to push myself harder? Is there somebody who would be disappointed in me or judge me if I didn't? That's always a good clue. Is it coming from an enjoyable motivation that feels inspiring, that naturally pulls you forward? Or is it coming from a feeling of guilt or shame or a feeling of not enoughness if you don't do the thing? And if that's the case, well, that kind of motivation is not self-caring at all. It's demotivating, it's demoralizing. So that needs changing up. That's one way to tell if you actually do need to do a little bit more. If you feel that you need to do less, you can ask yourself, am I getting the rest that I need? Is this me being self-caring and allowing myself to rest, which is great, 2 thumbs up? Or is this about me avoiding something? Remember, I've said there is a huge difference between resting under a blanket and hiding under the duvet. They look the same, but the energy of each is completely different. One is about self-care and resting. One is about avoidance, which never leads to anything good. So are you stopping the activity or slowing down because of a lack of self-belief that you can actually do the thing? Because that's crap. You can do the thing, and you need to just get on and do it. Oh, and here's a favorite one of mine. Are you approaching the last 10% of a particular task or a project? If you are approaching the last 10% of a project and you've got this overwhelming urge to just go, okay, I need a rest, I need a break, I need to walk away, I'm going to invite you to just push through to the end. Trust me, you will be very happy that you did. So the truth is that only you know what you truly need, right? You are the best judge of your needs. I just want you to make sure that you're making that judgment from a self-caring and self-loving place and not from a place of self-beating or inadequacy or not enoughness. And if you're really not sure, it might be helpful to imagine that instead of just talking it through in your own mind, imagine that you're talking it through with your best mate or with a coach or with somebody whose opinion you really trust and who cares about you. What would they think that you needed? Not someone who just blows sunshine up your ass and tells you what you want to hear, but somebody who really tells you loving truths. What would they tell you to do right now? Knowing that the advice they give you is for your highest good, not just right now, but in the long term as well. And that's another thing to think about. Is this something that will feel good right now? In other words, it's going to soothe a temporary pain or discomfort, but it will feel bad later. Or is this something that might feel bad or uncomfortable right now, but it will feel really good later? Or the really sweet spot is this something that's going to feel good now and good later? Because the truth is, no matter what it is that needs the care, whatever the unmet need is that really needs nurturing and love and caring, it's not just going to pass with time. Most likely, it'll get suppressed. You'll learn to deal with it. You'll just learn to cope. And I know that you can cope because you've proved that 100 times over. But wouldn't you like to do more than just cope? Wouldn't you like to do more than just get by? Wouldn't you prefer instead to feel really loved and cared for? Wouldn't you prefer to thrive? So here's a few last self-care tips for you. If you need to do a bit more, if you genuinely have decided that, it's time for me, this is the most self-loving, self-caring thing I can do, I need to do a little bit more, then I want you, first of all, to make a list of all the things that you want to work on, all the things that you feel you need to do more. It may be a big list. You may feel overwhelmed by it. I just want you to pick one of those things. Just one. The temptation is to say, yes, I'm going to start working out, and I'm going to start meditating, and I'm going to start eating healthily, and I'm going to start waking up before my alarm, and blah, 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 blah. You're not going to. You're just not. Just pick one of those things, and I want you to focus on it for a day. Just one day. Once you've accomplished that, cleanly, contentedly, happily, you've managed it, you've nailed it, then you can allow that focus to spread into a week. And just focus on that one thing for 1 week. Don't be tempted to add other things in. You will sabotage yourself. Just focus on that one thing for a day and then a week. Start small. Give yourself realistic, manageable, achievable daily goals. And when you're doing that, you get to feel that lovely sense of achievement. You get to build on your successes. You get to move on very quickly from the things that you might label as a failure. In other words, if you didn't do it for that day, doesn't matter, fuck it, move on, keep going. And get support. Get support. Hire a coach, hire a healer, hire a teacher, get yourself into a support group, get an accountability buddy, tell someone that you really trust what you're doing. Check in with them to make sure it gets done. Let someone lovingly kick your butt. And take regular breaks. Take breaks and be compassionate with yourself. Care for yourself. The whole cracking the whip and self-punishment thing, it's, if it was an effective motivational tool, I'd say go for it, but it just isn't. It doesn't work in the long term. Now, that's if you need to do a bit more. If you need to do less, I know you will feel a lot of resistance about this. Understand. Any guilt that you feel about doing less is just a result of the patriarchy, and as such, it can fuck all the way off. Bye-bye. Take your rest time. Book it in your diary. Stick it in your diary, in your calendar. Actually write it in, otherwise it won't happen. If you can't take a week off, just take a day. Just a day. And if you can't take a day off, how about 1 hour? And my love, if you can't take 1 hour off, you're in trouble. You need to get your time booked in right the now. Now, rest can be whatever you like. It can be a total switch off. So it could be sleep or meditation or TV watching, or it could be something gently active. It could be getting a massage or taking a stroll or making some art. It's up to you. Doesn't matter. You're the boss. You get to decide. You could read a book. You could take a bubble bath. Yes, you actually can do that. You can do a manicure and pedicure. There's nothing wrong with all of those things. They can absolutely be a gorgeous part of your self-care routine, if you like. They're just not meant to be rare luxuries. You could call a friend. You could watch a movie. You could sing a song. You could have a kitchen disco. You could feed your body. Whatever you like to do, you decide. Just make sure that your choice is coming from the most loving and compassionate part of yourself. Not the part of you that wants to give up and hide and keep yourself small, and not the part of you that wants to whip you into shape and make sure that you're doing more because you're not enough. So, my love, I can't wait to hear what you are going to be getting up to. I love the thought of you all out there in your bubble baths. That's a bit of a fruity thought to end on. Oh, I'm sending you lots and lots of love, and I'll see you soon. Take good care. Thanks for listening to Rowdy and Real with me, Sophie Shaw. If you'd like to stay in touch, then please visit norwichtherapy.co.uk and join the mailing list to receive a gorgeous free meditation straight into your inbox. And if you'd like to chat with me about your stuff, then please book yourself a free 30-minute call at sophieshaw.as.me/free call, and we'll start making a plan for your happiness. This podcast is intended for educational and vaguely entertaining purposes and is not a replacement for counselling, psychotherapy or coaching. Please take responsibility for your mental health and ask for the help you need. You're fabulous and you deserve to be happy. Bye.